Hey there everybody, it's me Josh, welcome to Story Time. We're about to delve into Mr. Impossible by Roger Hargreaves from the Mr. Men Library. Don't worry, we are getting to the Little Miss Library as well after this. Okay, Mr. Impossible, it sounds like it's going to be cool. I wonder what Mr. Impossible is about. I wonder what's impossible about it. Okay, because lots of things are possible. So let's find out how Mr. Impossible handles his life. Get comfortable, get ready, get excited, because we're about to delve into Story Time. Yeah. If you like these, please click the bell below and subscribe for me. Then you can visit the page and read whenever. Here we go, Mr. Impossible. Mr. Impossible could do the most amazing things. For instance, Mr. Impossible could jump over a house. You try it, it's impossible. Wow. And Mr. Impossible could make himself invisible. And all he had to do was stand there and think about becoming invisible, and he became invisible. You try it. It's impossible. Can you see me? Oh, damn. Ah well. And Mr. Impossible could fly. All he had to do was stand there and flap his arms about, and off he flew. Try it. It's impossible. Look at me go! Oh, how you going? Ah, well, that's all right. Let's see what else Mr. Impossible can do. Mr. Impossible lived in an impossible-looking house. Have you ever seen a house in such an impossible place? Of course not. Look at it on top of that tree. I beg to differ though, that's kind of like a tree house. Some of you out there might have tree houses. It does look like a very big house though, and it would be hard to place it there like that. Definitely. One day Mr. Impossible was out walking in the woods, and when he met a boy called William. William was on his way to school. "Hello," said Mr. Impossible. "Hello," replied William. "I'm William." "I'm Impossible," said Mr. Impossible. "Really?" said William. "Really," smiled Mr. Impossible. Having chats. "Can you do impossible things?" asked William. "Haven't came across anything I couldn't do," replied Mr. Impossible modestly. William thought. "Can you climb up that tree?" he asked, pointing to the biggest tree in the wood. "I can do better than that," replied Mr. Impossible. "I can walk up that tree." And he did. So he walks up it, just do. William thought again. "Can you stand on one hand?" he asked. "I can do better than that," replied Mr. Impossible. "I can stand on no hands." And he did. "That's impossible," cried William. "True," replied Mr. Impossible. See how his hands are not even on the ground. He's floating. Then William remembered that he was on his way to school. "Why don't you come with me?" he asked. "But I've never been to a school before," Mr. Impossible said. "Then it's time you did," replied William. "Come on." I wonder what Mr. Impossible's going to learn at school. William and Mr. Impossible sat at the back of William's classroom with all the other children. The teacher came in, but didn't notice that there was somebody extra in his class that morning. Look closely through all the students. Little purple head shining through there. His big blue hat. "Good morning, children," said the teacher. "I have a very difficult sum for you to do today. It will take you most of the morning to work out the answer." And he wrote the sum on the blackboard. Who do you think is going to work it out very, very, very quickly? There's the professor there. Teacher, I'm sorry. It was the most difficult sum William had ever seen in his whole life. Full of multiplications and divisions and additions and other things William didn't enjoy. The teacher was right. It would indeed take most of the morning to work out the answer, if not most of the afternoon as well. Mr. Impossible whispered in William's ear, probably telling him the answer. Yeah. William put up his hand. "Yes, William," said the teacher. "Is there something about the sum you don't understand?" "Please, sir," said William. "Is the answer 23? The teacher was very, absolutely, totally, completely amazed. How did you work out the sum so quickly? He gasped. It's impossible. Nothing is impossible, said Mr. Impossible from the back of the class, and stood up. Well, I never did, exclaimed the teacher. After that, Mr. Impossible spent all day at the school. He showed the teacher how he could read a book upside down. It's impossible, said the children who were watching. Absolutely, replied Mr. Impossible. Then William asked Mr. Impossible if he would like to play in the school football match. Oh, yes, please, replied Mr. Impossible. I've never played football before. And do you know what he did? He kicked the football so high into the air that when it came down, it had snow on it. What an impossible thing to do. Wow. Looking, you see closely, the ball has snow on it. Wonder where he kicked it to, the North Pole, the South Pole? Then it was time to go home. Mr. Impossible said goodbye to all the people at the school and then said goodbye to William. Goodbye, Mr. Impossible, said William. Goodbye, William, said Mr. Impossible, and just disappeared. William rubbed his eyes and went home. Because Mr. Impossible would probably just think, I want to be at home. Blip, home. William's mother and father were waiting for him. Hello, William, they said. Did you have a good day at school? Yes, replied William. And I met somebody who can do anything in the world. Really, William? They both laughed. You're impossible. William smiled and went inside. And 100 miles away, a small figure was listening to what William's mother and father were saying. And he grinned an impossible grin. And he went to sleep, standing on his head. And we all know that's impossible. That's right. Alright. Well, that's Mr. Impossible done. Thank you so much for reading the story with me today. Please subscribe, click the bell below. I appreciate you reading these stories here and following the page. I'll be back again with another story really, really, really soon. Bye for now, but not forever.